Evening all. Okay, this is a PlayChess.com broadcast, 31st of July. So is the audio okay, Hack Thomas? Okay. Hi there, B001267. Hi everyone on Twitch TV stream. Okay, I've got a selection of games to go over this week, and the first one is actually just from last night. I had this Summer Cup League, and usually chess clubs are not really that active during the summer, and there's this new trophy in the North Circular League called the Baum Trophy, and we managed to do well against one of the stronger teams, Chingford, last night, who have an IM playing for them on board 1. I got murdered in the first game. I got destroyed in the first game, so I'm just going to show you the second one, which is actually a lot more interesting anyway. Okay, so shall we start? Is the audio okay? Everyone ready to go on stream? Yep. So in this first game last night, so it's 30-minute chess, this league, and I'm black. So this IM, he used to be about 2450. His name's Meszaros, G.Meszaros, and he's dropped actually quite a few points one year. He had a bad year. I don't know, some sort of issues, but so anyway, in rapid he's quite dangerous, and so he kicked off with c4, the English opening, and I responded with e5, which kind of implies actually that, well, I have the idea of playing knight c6, then g6, bishop d7 to control d4 and put the knight here. Actually, that's the plan, so that this pawn can go in one step to f5. I don't want to block in the f pawn. And actually, I looked at Kasparov games against the English opening, and he doesn't routinely play knight f6. This is a major little finesse here, that you know routinely you'd play knight f6 to d4. But actually, against c4, you'll see that e5 or g6 even, keeps the option open for the f pawn. So anyway, e5 is another way of doing it. So I played e5, not to block the f pawn. Okay, and he plays knight c3, and I play knight c6. So my plan is dark square control, d4 in particular. So he fianchettos, he plays g3, and white's control of the light squares, contrasts with black's, often going to do the same thing on the dark squares. Okay, so we both fianchetto, and look at these pawns working with the bishop. That pawn is working with that bishop, and this pawn is kind of working with this bishop, well, and this knight, for d4 control. Now white indulges in a queenside expansion plan very early on here with the move rook b1, as though he's interested in b4 b5, and clearly I felt the class of my opponent already with rook b1. This isn't ordinary club chess moves. This is like positional squeeze that's going to be brought on with rook b1. Okay, so I thought, okay, it's best to maybe play a5 here. The reason for doing a5, from my point of view, is, okay, white will get in a3 and b4, and it might seem pointless to get this a file, but actually tactically there are variations in the game where entry points actually become useful in tactical variations. So you might as well have that a file sometimes, but it's a bit double-edged, because sometimes white can try and exchange off rooks later. Maybe it's not that clear cut that black wants to always do a5, and you're weakening b5. In chess there are always like ups and downs of everything. So anyway, he plays a3, and okay, I play knight ge7, so I'm not blocking in my f pawn, and he does this very accelerated expansion on the queen side, b4. Okay, so I do take, and he takes, and I just castle here, and he plays immediately b5, which actually, without e3 being played, I have this option and this option and this option. And I thought, out of the three options, actually it might not be so silly to play knight d4, because I was thinking from d4 it can go back to e6 and then maybe f5, f4. You see, if you go to a5, also it's kind of maybe a tactical target later, an a5 knight. Okay, it temporarily attacks c4, that could be protected. What do they say? A knight on the rim is dim or grim. A knight on the rim is dim, or whatever is said. So so I went to d4 actually. Okay, and he does play e3, and I just go to e6, and it's kind of central. So I kind of liked my knights here, and thought I was doing okay in this position. So this is an international master playing white. It's 30-minute chess. What do you do you have any thoughts about this position, anyone? If you want to say them now, or any questions so far? Probably not. So okay, but any questions far away? Okay. On Twitch stream, playing the game, I like the English opening. It's closed Sicilian in reverse. Yeah, I think my position was okay here. So he plays knight ge2, which gives white, of course, options, of d4 or f4. And funny enough, I played f5 and he played actually f4. And so here, there's a kind of little controversy here. What do I really want to play in this position? So if I do play e takes f4, I wonder that knight takes f4. So say this position, white has a grip still, nice grip, and maybe this g file is useful later. Maybe he castles and it looks pleasant. So I wasn't really convinced about that, and I was more convinced actually to play e4 here, because if left with another move, I'd play knight c5 and knight d3. Which means that white wants perhaps to stop this plan, and he does indeed sort of agree that he wants to stop this plan, but because his implicit agreement is playing d4, which gives me the option of en passant, and I take this option here because maybe this pawn can be backward on the semi-open e file. And this knight is a nice blockader of the c pawn, and generally protecting b7. So queen takes d3, knight c5. There's no major tactical disaster to speak of in this position just yet. I'm just attacking his queen. I've got a scope for my bishop. He moves the queen there. So I play d6 now, because I want to attack maybe the c4 pawn. Okay. So maybe I want to attack the c pawn, and I do attack the c pawn, and he defends it, and questions if I want to play the apparently sort of controversial move. If I take, he's got c file pressure, but there's a blockade on c5. So does that matter here? So I did take. Okay, he takes, and bishop f7. And I'm looking forward in this position to this e file, trying to make use of this backward pawn on the e file. Okay, so and I'm a bit wary actually about b6s, but I'm also slightly wary that if I play b6, then he's got knight d4 to c6. But after the game, he didn't think that was a big deal. The queen would just move. But so actually, he kind of played knight c3, which made b6 a little bit more attractive, because the knight, a knight is not going to pounce as quickly now to c6 in any case. So b6, I don't want to have structural damage inflicted, you know, on my pawn structure with white potentially, you know, playing b6 and then disrupting like my pawn chain. So I was a bit fearful about that. He plays bishop b2, and new kind of issues appear here on this diagonal, really, that if, you know, white exchanges off the dark square bishop, you know, is f6 going to be a bit weaker? Maybe the queen's going to replace that diagonal, and okay, it starts to look a bit dangerous soon. Rook e8, fair enough. Rook fe1, and okay, this is the backward pawn, but he's going to liberate it. After queen d7, he plays e4. So he's getting rid of his structural like weakness here, but apparently engines don't mind black's position here, and I think there's an important tactic in this position to consider, which I didn't really think of much. That actually, for example, taking might be good. For example, knight takes. There might be rook a2 here, with using that a file and a sort of naughty pin, and you could imagine actually this being quite useful. This might be a useful pin here. I think I saw something intriguing in this position. It might be rook takes b2 as a tactic, an engine line. So if queen takes, there's knight a4. But I wonder if well, if rook takes, he loses the rook, and if he takes here, well, this might be good for queen e1s coming in. Bishop d4 is also dangerous. So queen takes, maybe knight a4 here. So this use of the a file is kind of interesting here. Okay, so but I slip up actually in this position. Well, I kind of thought, oh, it's an immediate disaster. After I saw his next move, I thought this was going to be a disaster for me. So I play rook e7, and guess what white plays here? Shock horror. And I thought, hell, this is a disaster. I've just allowed this next move. If I give you 20 seconds, can you guess what white plays here, starting from now? Anyone? Okay. Yeah, I thought, oh, what have I done? I've just blown this second game as well. He plays e5, and the point is, this rook is now loose on this diagonal. So if I take here, which I did do, this looks like a disaster. But then I noticed, hang on a sec, maybe this isn't a disaster. Maybe I just lose the exchange for a pawn. So I play this, and actually, when I did engine checking this game today, actually black isn't actually in a disastrous position here, because it's an exchange for a pawn, and my opponent actually maybe detected that, and he wasn't that keen to immediately take my rook here. He actually took on e5, and so we have now a very exciting position. What has happened here is that white has a potentially loose pawn center, as well as winning the exchange, of course. So actually, I still offer the exchange. I say, okay, I'll give you the exchange, take the exchange, c takes, because I want to open up, you know, lines to the king, and maybe there's weaknesses. Okay, and he does take on a8, so I'm the exchange down. But here it seems you know, if he did take like this, I've got an active position here. You know, maybe queen takes and it's an active position, because the bishops look actually quite good over here. Not too bad. Actually, he played queen g2 though, so not only attacking the rook but also facilitating queen c6, which might be useful to try and get a dangerous pawn. And I play rook e8 now, which he kind of blundered here, I think. Around here, I think he mentioned he got his move order wrong. He played rook bd1, giving me actually 2 pawns for the exchange. I take another pawn, I'm thinking, what's happening here? He plays queen c6. Okay, is this the point? He's going to get a very dangerous pawn. Okay, well, I dared to take it and give him a very dangerous pawn. And now I get a bit overexcited. Well, one thing that popped into my mind here was I can't really go for this pawn that easily with rook c8. Also I thought, because here there's knight d5, and not only threatening knight e7 check, but indirectly defending, you know, that pawn here with the check as well. And I thought this might be unpleasant, this position, because he's also put firepower on e5. But apparently I think this might have been the way to go according to an engine. But no, I blunder here. After taking, I blunder with bishop b3, and I thought, no, this is really it. After the next move, I've really blown this here. Can you guess what white played in this position if I give you 20 seconds starting from now? So white to play here. Anyone? Okay. On Twitch stream, some of you have mentioned rook takes d6. Yes, using that pin. Ouch! I thought, what have I done? What have I done? But hold on a sec. I can at least get the exchange back, surely. And the position is now getting crazy. Because remember, he's got this dangerous pawn only 2 steps away. Remember, this is an IAM, International Master, that used to be about 2450. Okay, he had a bad year and might be less, but he was only recently 2450, and I've just... Okay, I can get the exchange back, bishop d4 check, and he doesn't immediately like take this. He actually plays king f1, and he lures my bishop to c4 because of this. If I want to win the exchange, I go with the flow with bishop c4 check here. I'm thinking, what's his idea? It didn't occur to me, well, he wants the bishop here as an improvement. So when he takes, it's with tempo, so he can carry on with his pawn. So, okay, so he moves the king. If he does, like, you know, rook e2, it will be, I think, bad, because takes. And I'm really on that rook, and maybe I've got a chance. You know, I can always come back for this pawn. That's not unacceptable. So his idea is just to leave my bishop on c4. Okay, so I take and he takes. So he's kicking my bishop, and he's still got this pawn only 2 steps away from queening. So am I gonna bishop a6, and he plays check. And he's docking his pawn, c7. Docking station, ready to queen. Just in time here, I've got rook e8. So all is not lost just yet. But I'm thinking, hold on a sec, this is a slaughter diagonal. This knight and bishop will spell doom, won't it? Actually, I'm not sure. Okay, he plays bishop a3 here. And no, I think this is possibly the exact move order. And here I throw in this check. because I want to rule out knight d5 variations, because after king he plays king h3 curiously, which may be a mistake, but I'm wary now. You see, I was wary that if I ever wanted to play king f6 in the future, that knight d5 or this diagonal. Okay, so I tried to rule out knight d5. Okay, now in this position, he's threatening to maybe take my knight and do something else horrible in the position. Okay, so I play knight e6, kicking the rook, also f4, but he plays check. And now I go to this f6, and note how knight d5 has been ruled out by the bishop. Yeah. So he plays bishop b2, which looks as though I'm on the slaughter line. But now, thankfully, I spot that I can force a draw. And this is all we need. Well, it was really helpful to try and win the match, to be able to secure a draw here. Can you guess? It's not that hard. If I give you 20 seconds, the draw by perpetual. Can you see it, everyone? If I give you 20 seconds starting from now. So black to draw, black to play and draw. Right, I look around on the other boards. I'm thinking, yes, actually we've got a chance even to win the match if I just draw. I make sure I can draw. So knight g5. And now look, there's this perpetual. So he has to accept the draw. And that helped win the match. And I'll show you the match link. I'm going to show you the match link if you want to check it out. It's really cool that we managed to win the match, because we're outrated on the first two boards. Here's the match link. Oops. If you want to check it out. So I managed to draw one of them. I lost the other game. My good friend Alex drew with an FM and lost the other game. But our bottom two did very well, and so we won the match. It was their first loss in this league, this 30-minute league over the summer. So actually, I was kind of very pleased with that, actually, just securing the draw here. It helped win the match. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that one. So, now, let's go on to some Carlson games. If I did try and go for more, I'd get splatted. It has to be noted. Now, for example, right, if I aim for a mate, I get splatted with not knight d5, but knight e4 is double check on the king, and this starts to get really gruesome. You know, like check, check. It's not worth going into this. This wouldn't be a draw. Okay. So I have to be content with the draw. Okay, but let's go on to a Carlson game from the recent Biel tournament. But I think it's nice to sort of be able to talk about games you know something about. But no, we'll go on to a Carlson game, which is nice to kind of look at as well, even if one doesn't understand much. Let's go and look at this game. So, okay, from the Biel Chess Festival. So this was played on the 24th of July against Wang Hao. Let's have a look at this game. Actually, I thought it was quite an exciting game, and shows the sort of hack attack style that Carlson is able to sometimes make use of. So playing white in the Biel Chess Festival, he played d4. And we saw from Wang Hao a Nimzo engine after knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, and we have the Nimzo engine defense, so that pin on the knight, named after Aaron Nimzovich. So black is aiming, you know, often to intensify pressure on e4. Queen c2, a very popular move. Black castles. Knight f3. And Okay, black now plays curiously b6, which is kind of provocative, saying to white, I dare you to play e4 here. There's nothing to stop white playing e4 here, and for that reason sometimes I believe, I'm not a major opening exponent, but I think that sometimes d5 is played in this position just to lock down e4. But b6, okay, so Carlson accepts the challenge here of playing e4, and now black reacts with c5, so maybe this is some sort of advanced preparation by black. Oh yes, as someone points out, playing the game, Carlson is 2846 in the live ratings, so he's nearly catching up Kasparov on the live ratings as the highest rated FIDE player of all time, isn't he? So anyway, yes, so but is this home preparation, this c5? Okay, again, you know, e5 looks tempting and is played, and now d5 looks tempting and is played. So we have this situation, I suppose a little bit analogous to the game I've just shown you, where white has this dangerous looking pawn center. Now, and the question again occurs, is this pawn center actually weak or dangerous, really dangerous? ED, CD, and now d6. So is black going to get good pieces, good squares for his pieces from all this? Magnus now makes use of that e5 pawn to play bishop g5. And you might argue here, well, can't black now just play f6 and knock out that pawn? He does. And now, potentially, it seems you would think black has dynamism and a sort of Benoni structure, and maybe d5 is a bit vulnerable. White castle's queenside here. Wow. So he's adding more support automatically to the d5 pawn. Okay. Black now feels the need to voluntarily give up the dark square bishop. He plays bishop takes c3. And Magnus plays b takes. And now we see bishop g4. Okay. Structurally, it seems white's pawn structure is a little bit fragmented and is about to become more fragmented after this next move, rook e1, allowing the possibility of double pawns. But with the double pawns, there's a major g-road to black's king. Surely this g-road, g-file, is a little bit dangerous. And black accepts that challenge. He plays bishop takes f3, g takes f3. So this is a hard position, perhaps, to assess. Or is it? White does have the bishop pair and the g-file. Would you guys say that white is better here? Or if I give you 20 seconds to evaluate, would you take white or black here? What colour would you take here out of the opening? So we're 15 moves in to the game. Would you take white or black? Anyone? Personally, I like the dynamic positions. Yeah, I know it's a wrecked pawn structure, but even positional players can be adaptive in style and one day play like this, you know, even Carlson, and one day play just to win loads of endgames. Okay, so some of you like white and black. Okay. Hack Thomas writes, black looks stable but white has open lines. Naughty Bishop writes, white, sorry, I don't know why I laughed there, sorry. Sorry, okay, knight bd7, okay, is played. Now bishop d3, so putting pressure on h7, h6, bishop f4, putting pressure on d6, c4 now, getting some squares like c5, maybe the c file against white's king. Bishop f5, just wanting to keep things closed. Bishop e6 might be useful as well. Knight c5, and now that g file, rook hg1, is making itself felt. You know, bishop h6 immediate threat. That's king gets out of the way. Rook g6, and now we can see that the rooks might be doubling here, and there might be bishop h6. So rook f7, rook eg1, queen f8 tries to keep things kind of solid over here. Now I think this is kind of a little bit ingenious here, because this d pawn is a bit loose. It's a little bit of attacking genius, I think, shown here, to play bishop e3, not only sacking the d pawn, but the bishop's going to go to a nice central square where rook h6 might be threatened on knight d5, and that's what happens now. Knight takes d5, bishop d4, threatening rook h6 because of that nasty pin. Okay, knight f6. So queen d2 now, which again doesn't immediately seem to threaten rook h6 because the queen's kind of covering it, but does it threaten rook takes g7 and then queen h6? After rook e8, in fact rook takes g7 is played, and black here feels the need to sack his queen. He plays queen takes g7. So I guess it's a total disaster. Rook takes g7. Queen takes h6. Now if rook h7, there's bishop f6. If king g8, with king g8, probably bishop h7 looks naughty. Or is it? Maybe they're stronger here. Anyone? I think probably go with that. If bishop h7, alright, so if king h8, bishop f6, if king f7, it's queen takes f6. Okay, so queen takes g7 looks forced. Okay, rook takes. Okay, now so Magnus is getting something from his attack. The bishops are still pretty menacing. Queen f4 now, hitting d6, as well as maybe coming into g3. Knight d3 check. That's taken. And now, okay, there might be something naughty going on here. King d2, so the king can actually take on d3. King g6, king takes. Okay, can the rooks coordinate? Probably not here. h4 doesn't look like it. Rook fe7 check. It looks really dangerous. If knight takes, then we've just got simply queen g4 check, winning the knight. So king f7. Now queen f5 introduces queen g6 and also bishop f6, depending on what black does. Rook e5 is played, which looks like desperation. Check. And now even stronger than bishop e5 is the move f4. So if the rook does move, then we've got queen f6. If it moves here, if it moves there, then okay, what does white play here? Interesting. At minimum, can white just take here? There's probably a stronger move here. Maybe just taking on f6 is a forcing move to look at. Check. And there's f4 check. That wins the rook. Forcing sequence is nasty. Yeah. Okay, great game. So that shows that Magnus can be this this really aggressive player, even from seemingly positional opening. But black was kind of provocative, and that G file is just an attacking player's dream, just to double rooks, and it looks like naturally played attack. That I played a similar G file attack just in Blitz earlier today. It's good fun for the attacking player. Okay, so let's go on to another game. I hope you enjoyed that one. Shall we go on to another game of Magnus? Hopefully not a dull long one. Actually, I'm going to bypass dull long ones. Let's go with this one that's black, not too long. Okay, so Magnus playing black against Viktor Bologon, who is having a bad time, and he's only in there because Morozovich apparently was unwell. So Morozovich, filler, Bologon, totally unprepared for anyone in the tournament, it seems. Was surprised, maybe honoured to be able to play in it, but he's been bashed up quite a lot so far. So e4 was played by Viktor, and Magnus plays c5, Sicilian defence, after knight f3, knight c6. So has Magnus been influenced by the recent really exciting World Championship match between Anand and Gelfand? In fact, both players seem very excited to copy the moves of Anand and Gelfand. So here bishop b5, but now a novelty as far as that match is concerned, d6. Okay, white castles, bishop d7. Doesn't look majorly sophisticated play from black. It does avoid the double pawns now, of course. If white wants to take on c6, just take with the bishop, why not? Rook e1, knight f6. And white takes time to play h3 here, which may be a little bit surprising. Was it totally needed? Okay, e6 and now c3. So white is keen maybe to construct a centre without being harassed with too much by anything. So d5 is played by Magnus though, without even castling. So his king's still in the centre and he's playing d5. But you know, taking is pleasant enough for black, perhaps. Knight takes d5. Magnus at least thought his position's okay. So actually white agreed and played d3. Didn't really want to do that. He played d3. And now Magnus stretches on the queen side some space, a6, and now b5. Stretched some queen side space. Okay, so bishop c2, and it's kind of like a Roy Lopez sort of rerouting over here. Okay, so d takes e4 is played. D takes e4, which isolates white's e pawn potentially a little bit more. It hasn't got the d pawn, but it's okay. It's, you know, mainly threatening e5 in the future. And Magnus stops e5, so he's locking up that. Ooh, he plays e5 here. Pardon me. Okay, so what do we have here? This bishop's kind of locked in by its own pawn, but this bishop's locked in by its own pawn. Is d5 going to be weak? You know, maybe sometimes bishop g5 and try and, you know, get a knight to d5, because that d5 hasn't got any support in black's pawn structure quite naturally. But also, you know, maybe b5 is a queenside target as well, and white plays on that now, a4. Okay, bishop e7, and white takes on b5, takes and exchanges off the rook. And this gives black a naturally nice position, surely, for the queen, eyeing not only the a file, but, you know, come in maybe usefully. So okay, right. So bishop g5 is played now. And bishop e6, which controls some of these light squares, and maybe queen a2 is going to be useful. So e5 is still protected there. Knight a3 hitting that b5 pawn. b4 gaining a bit more space, and white does seem passive now, and he plays a very passive looking move. This kind of knight retreat back. It looks as though white's had a disaster in the opening here now, positionally. What really has caused this to occur? Why couldn't, for example, the knight plunge forward to b5? Possibly here, you know, queen b8 defends d6 and hits the knight, and the knight would be stranded there. No c4 to support it. Bishop a4, maybe black castles here, and it's still awkward for white. So the knight actually decided to go back to b1. Okay. So after casting, so what do you guys think of this position? If you were to take white or black, I assume that most of you would take black now. But let's see. If I give you 20 seconds, who would you take here, white or black, as being better here? White or black? 20 seconds. I assume black, but yeah. So okay, so bishop a4 though is posing some questions of some sort, like this e5 pawn maybe, but that's okay. Black Carlson reacts with h6 here, which, okay, let's have a quick look at bishop c6, queen takes, knight takes. In this position, you know, if queen c7, bishop here, bishop d6, is white losing a piece here? If white is losing a piece here, then that's why h6 is a good answer then to this. Okay, so bishop h4 was played. Now rook d8 attacking the queen, knight d2, and now g5 locking in this bishop really as a prisoner. Bishop g3. In fact, there's a grandmaster. I'm reminded of a grandmaster on YouTube which has said about sometimes the pins like this are being bad because you get a blocked in bishop. That's one thing he mentioned. He mentioned about capturing is sometimes a mistake, which also occurred in this game because it gave the queen a good square. So actually we've got two symptoms mentioned by someone on YouTube about a trapped in, hemmed in bishop, and about active pieces given to the opponent on capturing things. That's interesting. I think black is getting a kind of positional edge from the events so far in this game. But e5 is a problem at the moment. Knight d7. Okay, knight d7 is played. So here again there's a question. Why can't white take here and then take on e5? There's probably a different tactical reason coming in here. Takes. in this position it seems queen d7 maybe. Queen d7, what would you do about this? If you played rook e2, maybe bishop c4. Okay. So if e5 is not possible to capture, then the bishop really is about to be imprisoned with f6. Oh dear. And so each time bishop c6 isn't working so far, it seems. Bishop b3 is played. Now knight f8 here is played. Queen c2, I guess for tactical reasons, again knight e5 is going to fail here. Well, just bishop takes and then rook takes. So knight takes, knight takes, or maybe even, bishop takes first. Queen takes. The knight's hanging. So, okay, so queen c2, f6, locking in this bishop. So black is increasing the positional trump cards. White definitely doesn't want to play a move like c4, then knight d4 would be huge. He plays knight c4 because maybe he wants to get onto d5 at some point. Queen a6, and black is really fiercely contesting the light square control in the position with this move, putting a lot of pressure on the light squares. Queen e2, and now rook b8 starts an immediate tactical question about this bishop as well is posed. Knight e3, which attacks the queen, and also means bishop e6 will be check, and we have that transaction then coming up. Queen takes, check, takes, but black still in this endgame looks better. Even though white has got that potential for knight d5, this bishop's locked in, and black's rook seems more aggressive than white's rook here. He makes use of the aggressive rook with rook at a8. Now h4 is played. Now rook at a2. Immediate tactical question now, b takes, because you can't answer with that because you lose the rook. So king f1 protecting the rook. King f7. Bishop h2 looks miserable for white. Knight a5, putting pressure on those light squares. hg, rook d2. And now b3, and this pawn is only 2 steps away from queening now. If black could win this pawn, it will spell disaster for black, for white. And now a tactical move, a curious tactical move is played here. We get a very curious sequence, and white's position is otherwise positionally desperate. So can an actual combination sequence come to the rescue from a seemingly desperate position? So the combination sequence initiated by white is bishop takes e5, and Magnus is not too keen to take this bishop, and perhaps I should have done in-depth engine analysis of this, but I didn't. I just played through these games briefly. But let's see if Magnus takes this bishop. Check. I don't know, is this dangerous? I'm not sure how. Does anyone see how? Magnus didn't even go in for it. He just kind of ignored this. He played g4, putting 2 pieces attacked, and offering the pawn here. So knight takes g4, and with that weakness of the last move there, so he's sacked like that pawn. He gets knight c4 in now. So he just wants that b pawn. He doesn't care really about this stuff. He wants his b pawn. If he gets that b pawn, then his b pawn is about to queen. Rook e2. Now knight takes b2, so he's got his pawn. Knight d2. And now Magnus protects that b pawn asset with c4. So it's ready to roll now, only 2 squares away, and furthermore c4 means knight d3 is a supported knight if needed. Bishop g3, now knight d3. And in this position, black is immediately threatening slaughter with check, because this knight is on e1. There's nothing protecting e1 at the moment apart from the rook. So knight c4 is out of the question. So f4 protects actually e1. So if there's a check, there's bishop e1. But now knight e takes f4, hits the rook, and decoys the bishop away from e1. And white's really smashed here, really. He's absolutely smashed. He plays bishop takes f4, just allowing himself to be mated with check. And that's it. He resigns here. Now, if he plays rook e3, then just take the knight, I guess. The 2 knights are protecting each other, and you've got the b pawn. So the curious thing, yeah, bishop takes e5 looked kind of desperate anyway. White couldn't it have just been taken? I guess one of you knows the answer to this, seeing the analysis somewhere on the internet for this very, very high profile game. One of you is intimately aware of the analysis. Is black better in this case? I assume black was okay anyway. You know, maybe knight f5 has got the threat of rook d7, and black, Magnus, doesn't want to get involved in this stuff. You know, maybe that's the case. So he bypassed all that. If we just go here, he bypassed it all. All he wanted, he focused on his goals. He wants the b pawn. He got his b pawn, and that was it for white. Okay, let's have a look. Let's have a look in overview and summary at this game. So an exciting Sicilian game, even though it wasn't open Sicilian, sort of positional, where black seemed to gather positional trump cards, like the locked in bishop, and tactically making sure bishop c6s weren't working at any time, of course. This endgame advantage persisted, and white got desperate, and the desperate combination was bypassed with counter sacrifices from black just to get to that b2 pawn. Got to the b2 pawn, and that really is strategic disaster for white. So great stuff there from black, but I feel bad for Viktor Bologon. He's doing everyone a favour stepping into this tournament, but does he regret it now? Okay, shall we have a look at definitely not such a long game, but there's the other Bologon game which occurred just today. Shall we have a look at the other Bologon game while we're at it? Shall we? There's a few of you about. Okay, so let's quickly look at the other Bologon game to wrap up. Shall we? Okay. So, as white against Bologon, Viktor. Okay, d4, and we saw actually an exciting Benko Gambit being played by Viktor Bologon, and it was accepted. And in this position, Magnus really does accept the gambit again. I mean, properly. He takes on a6, so he's a pawn up, and black's going to get huge pressure potentially. So g6, knight c3, bishop takes a6, e4, forfeiting castling, but the king can manually castle here. Bishop takes, king takes, d6. It's all very theoretical. Knight f3, bishop g7, and the king manually parks itself on g2. So the king manually is fianchetto itself. So white's a pawn up. The rook might actually be useful at some point, sometimes. Maybe not in this game. Maybe it just wants to go to the centre. Knight d7. Now queen e2 highlights light squares in the position as well as a central break. Queen b6. Now a4 highlights that b5 square in particular for a knight outpost. And this is the way I think Viktor Korchnoi used to strangle people who used to play the Benko Gambit, using the b5 square, securing that, fortifying b5. And that seems to be the case in this game. After rook fb8, the way to destroy black's counterplay is stick a knight on b5. Okay, so knight's stuck on b5. So where is black's counterplay along the a and b files? Is it so glamorous? Is this knight going to do some devastation? Is this bishop going to stretch on that diagonal? Knight e8 looks a fairly standard move. To come to c7 maybe to challenge this knight. Bishop g5 asking the question on e7. So the queen humbly retreats back to defend for a moment. And now white secures the position a little bit more tactically by playing rook a3. So the rook is supported by the pawn. So any rook b5s kind of almost like ruled out at the moment. Knight b6, and also there's a very important idea with rook a3 that white wants to be able to play b3 without losing the rook to bishop takes a1. So after knight b6 he's able to play now b3, which is dual purpose because it's also highlighting marking out c4 as well. Okay, queen d7, as though, okay, there's a target maybe on a4, and if black plays c4 then maybe knight takes a4 or something is going on. Something naughty is brewing here surely, otherwise black okay, black is struggling to show compensation for the pawn, but this next move must have some purpose behind it. Rook a2. So is this a very high class positional move, this rook a2? Actually I find it hard to okay, if we look at the evidence of the rest of the game, rook a2 might be preparing the evidential maneuver, this which happens. So f6, bishop c1. Okay, and now f5, trying to maybe break up white's centre, put pressure on d5 here. But Magnus takes that because he's got pressure again on e7, and he can use that e6 square for a check if he wants to get rid of the queens. There's an open invitation here. But first he protects his d pawn. Now knight f6, and he uses that invitation just to get the queens off. Queen e6 check. Queens come off. Okay. So knight e4, and it looks as though, where is black's compensation coming from? Is black going to play c4 and undermine a4 here? Well, actually f5 is a bit loose, so knight h4 counterattack, allowing c4 to happen. So he takes on c4. He's got f5 under view here. Knight takes c4. But this would be a disaster right now because if rook takes b5. So he has to do something maybe about this rook, or counterattack, or get this out of the way. He plays knight c7, and it gets all a bit hairy now. This position, a bit exciting. So if the black rook moves, then knight d5 maybe just in time protects c3 for this fork here. So actually knight c3 was played immediately. Knight takes, hitting maybe the bishop, or usefully rook b1 could be useful at some point. It seems anyway, but knight c7 is played, and rook b1 is not made use of here. I wonder why. In the game, knight c3 was played. So imagine if rook b1 was played. What would white be bothered? What would white play here? Actually, I can almost see, rook takes d6 doesn't work. Knight takes d6. So if it takes e7, that doesn't work either. No, what would white play here? If I give you 20 seconds, what does white play here? In the game, knight c3 was played. So what was wrong with rook b1? Does anyone know? 20 seconds starting from now. Ah, yeah, I think, yeah. I'm not sure about bishop g5 as mentioned, because you just lose that rook. Okay, you get that pawn, but I think more convincing looks like knight takes f5. Okay, so say takes takes knight d5, threatening e7, e8. There's difficult to stop e7 here, and this knight's actually docking that pawn, isn't it, on e8? So perhaps that's why. That looks dangerous for black anyway. So in the game, knight c3 was played, and we saw rook d3, and now rook c8, and now knight b5. Simplification. Now rook c5, protecting f5. Now rook b3. So this pawn's ready to go. Knight a5, which also hits the bishop. That's protected with rook b1. So still b6 is ready to go. Bishop d4, and now the b pawn is pushed, and it's blockaded with knight b7. Now here, Magnus plays rook b4, hitting that bishop. And black, of course, is attacking this bishop, so he plays this desperado, bishop takes f2. But he's going to lose f5 at the end of this, surely. King takes, check, is thrown in, now takes, and he loses f5. So the smoke has now cleared, and unfortunately white does have this major passed pawn here, this huge knight on f5, and even rook g4 is looking dangerous here. As well as knight takes e7 to deal with. Check, king g4. It looks pretty bad actually, this position now, for black. He plays knight c5, and now just b7, and black resigns. There's no saving cheapos here or anything. So that was quite a calm performance against the potentially dangerous dynamic Benko Gambit. Should we a quick overview and summary? So it was accepted, and the king manually castled to g2. Then we saw this strengthening of the b5 square, and these nifty rook maneuvers come to mind quite vividly in this game for me. So rook a3, getting out of the way of the bishop, so b3 is playable. And this more curious one was rook a2, which I guess is lending support from the queen now to be protected. So any rook b5s, you know, the queen's protecting a2 here. And then we saw this bishop c1, and okay, a nice navigation through the tactical pressure, just to leave himself with the ideal endgame scenario of being a clear pass pawn up on the queen side, and that one elegantly is the last move of the game, b7. So I hope you enjoyed this week. I thought some of those games are quite interesting. Thanks very much. Okay, I'll put this on YouTube later, so maybe you can look at it again maybe tomorrow. Okay, thanks very much. Hope you enjoyed it this week. See you again next week. Thanks very much.